Hey everybody, Movie Reviewer Next Door here, and I'm back with another review, and this time I'm continuing the Psycho series with Psycho 3. Not a big fan of this poster, gonna be honest. This is a horror film directed by Anthony Perkins. Yes, directed by him now. Uh, 1986, and it stars Anthony Perkins, Diana Scarwood, Jeff Fahey, Roberta Maxwell, and Hugh Gillen. In this film, former mental patient Norman Bates is once again operating his infamous hotel, where he keeps up the semblance of being sane and ordinary, but still holds on to some macabre habits. Eventually, Norman becomes interested in a troubled tenant who's been staying on a long-term basis and reminds him of someone from his past. As they begin a relationship, can Norman keep his demons in check? So, what did I think of Psycho 3? Well, yet again, I did watch the Blu-ray that was in this collection. Um, and while I don't think this is as good as 2, I still like this better than the first film, but it is a good sequel. It is. And it also takes the series in a different direction without feeling like it's aping too much off of the original or just straight up copying things. It more seems like homage here. But let me get to the cast. Um, Anthony Perkins plays Norman Bates again. I think he does a great job here. Rest in peace, Anthony Perkins. He died too young. Um, it really sucks that around the time, apparently, from what I've heard, around the time he was filming this, he found out that he had AIDS, which really sucks because I do think that affects his performance a bit. Maybe it adds to the sadness parts because the times where he expresses sadness, I really felt it and it felt really genuine. Um, but there were moments that I felt like something was a bit off, but still, maybe that added to it. I'm not saying it was good that he got AIDS, of course not. But um, I still think he plays the character very well, and I don't think anybody else could play it. Diana Scarwood plays Marion Coyle. She's a troubled nun who ends up escaping her convent and making her way to Bates Motel, and Norman ends up falling in love with her. Um, and she also reminds him of Marion Crane. I think she's pretty decent in the film. She has her moments where she's a bit too theatrical or a bit too over the top. I liked her performance a bit more in Mommy Dearest because it fit along with them making fun of how theatrical Joan Crawford was even in her own home life. But I think you could have easily recast this role. But they did pick someone who looked enough like her, enough like Marion to the point where it actually seems to fit. Um, Jeff Fahey plays Dwayne Duke. He is a musician that ends up working at Bates Motel in order to pay for his car to get fixed. I think he does a really good job playing a complete asshole. There's a lot of scenes where I was just waiting for him to be dead. He's kind of similar to the character played by Dennis Franz in the second film, though I do think Jeff Fahey gives a better performance here than Dennis Franz did. Roberta Maxwell plays Tracy Venable. She's a reporter trying to get Norman's side of the story at first, and then it turns out she's trying to, you know, uh, get him to confess to certain things. And again, somebody who, if she had backed off, probably wouldn't have been involved in any of this stuff. She does a good job. I'm not that familiar with this actress. Apparently, she's been in a few things. Postman. Um, Special Bulletin, Philadelphia, Brokeback Mountain, Changeling, Dead Man Walking. But she did a good job. And Hugh Gillen returns from the second film as Sheriff John Hunt. He also does a good job. But before I go any further, again, like with the first and second films, I am doing a spoiler warning because I want to get in depth on things about this film. Um, so Major spoiler warnings. Spoilers for the entire review. Out of the way. These films don't get nearly as much recognition as they should, because Psycho 2 and 3 constantly get lumped in with with slashers at the time. And while this film has a bit more of a slasher vibe to it than the second, I would not call it a dead-on slasher. I'd more call it a psychological thriller slash dark comedy slash tragic romance even. Um because what happens to these characters, it's not so much that there's like a de facto bad guy. It feels more like someone being willed into doing things that they don't want to do, because Norman never comes off to me as just this all-out bad guy. Something about him, it feels more so that he is being taken over, like his body is being taken over rather than um him just wanting to kill people, because it's the mother side of his personality taking over. And again, you could argue that in the second film, if none of the people, like if Lila Loomis hadn't come after him and tried to infiltrate his life and make him go crazy, he would have been just fine. He probably would have, gotten back to his old, like, he would have been normal maybe. Who knows? That's what makes the series so interesting, and that's what kind of pisses me off when people write Psycho 2 and Psycho 3 especially off as just dumb slashers, because they're not. The second film is so much smarter than anybody gives it credit for. Like, just the fact that, I mean, I'm doing a Psycho 3 review, spoilers for Psycho 1 and Psycho 2. The fact that in Psycho 2, Lila Loomis is one of the main villains, and Norman's real mom, who is Miss Toomey, uh, or not Toomey, wait, now I gotta look up her name, uh, Miss Spool, turns out to be his real mother. People don't give that film nearly the credit it deserves for having such a ballsy twist that actually works, and having villains that were originally good guys in the first film. Lila Loomis effectively becomes the villain of the second film, if not at least one of the villains, along with Mary and Miss Spool, Norman's real mother. It and this film, where it goes with Norman seeing this nun who comes to the motel, who reminds him of Marion Crane. She even has the same uh sh- she even has the same initials as Marion Crane, Maureen Coyle. Um and she looks like her, and that's a really interesting setup. He starts to fall for her. He sees this as a way of, you know, he sees this as a second chance, and she sees him as her savior, because he ends up, originally he was going to kill her, and then he like sees her with her wrists cut open in the bathtub in the motel room, and he ends up saving her. He sees this as another way out of his madness. And again, like in the second film, if some certain people weren't trying to make him go crazy again, he probably would have been all right. He probably would have never hurt anybody ever again. And even if you say he is, it's also technically his other half, which is his mother, that is constantly taking over him. Now, I'm not saying it's like a ghost movie where she's like actually taking over his body. It's a separate personality, and yes, it's something that should be treated. And I will say the ending of this film is both kind of sad and hopeful, because you hope that well, both him accidentally murdering Marine, or not accidentally, she ends up falling down the stairs and then gets impaled because the mother scares him. It really is a tragic romance because you feel like Norman is starting to get a bit more normal as he's been with Marine, and she sees the good in him. She thinks that he has atoned for his sins. She thinks that he has gotten over what happened back then. And again, I think this is a very interesting direction for the series to go. It's kind of half dark comedy at times and half, again, a tragic romance. And I think Anthony Perkins directs the hell out of this film. It's a very good looking film. Now, this one does have a more than 3 million higher budget. It's almost twice the budget of the second one. I don't know if I'd say it looks better than the second one. It definitely has its own style. Each of the first three Psycho films do have directorial touches. Like Richard Franklin, who directed the second one, was a student of Alfred Hitchcock. So you could definitely see it in his shooting style, and I think he captured Hitchcock's personality for the camera very well while also making it his own. Here, I think Anthony Perkins understands the character of Norman better than anyone else, so who better to direct than the man who made the character as iconic as he was? And yeah, there's a lot of neon. There's, again, during the. While I said this is closer to a slasher than the others, it is a bit more creative than that. There's only really two on-screen kills that are like slashery kills. Um, but they are very well done. The practical effects are nice. Um, it's not insanely like over the top or anything. It's for the most part just kind of standard slasher type kills. But still, um, I think that this is a film that could easily satisfy both horror slasher movie fans and people who are looking for something a bit different from the era. Because again, this was the era where you had a ton of slashers doing basically the same thing, not much for creativity. And I mean, this is around the same time as another film that kind of gets labeled as a slasher when I think it's much more than that, and that is The Fan, with Lauren Bacall, James Garner, Michael Biehn. And I should watch that one again. I remembered enjoying it. And this is one of those films that critics at the time seemed to not be able to get a grasp on. Certain people liked it more than the second, certain people hated this one. Uh, Roger Ebert apparently said that this was better than the second. Again, I can't agree there. I love the second one too much. It's not a nostalgia thing. I legitimately love the second one. Even if it was nostalgia, that doesn't mean your feelings are invalid, guys. Don't listen to assholes when they say, "Oh, nostalgia doesn't mean anything. You can love a bad movie." If you or if you're entertained watching the movie, it's a good movie. There you go. Um, but I don't really see a lot of their points with this one. They're like, oh, they don't like movies being slashers, Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel, but they also praise the third one for being closer to slashers. And it's like, make up your mind, guys. Do you want these films to do something different, like you constantly talk about, or do you want just the same old so you can bitch and complain? But then they liked Psycho 3 for some reason, but they didn't like Psycho 2. I don't understand that. If you like Psycho 3 more than Psycho 2 or Psycho 1, be my guest. Personally, I don't see it when with their reasonings. But still, um I think this film does what it's trying to do very well. I think the ending is actually pretty damn sad. Um kind of like it was with the second one. The second one had kind of a downer ending. because it was Norman returning to his crazy self at the end because of the events that had transpired. And the only person he really killed in the first film or in the second film was his actual mother, who basically killed all these people in order to drive him crazy. Like, it's it's a really sad movie if you really think about it, the second and this one too, because yes, in this third one he is the one doing the killing, but this all probably could have been avoided if the events of the second film didn't happen. He probably would be just doing his taxidermy, running the motel, and just living a normal life. And it really sucks. It really sucks to see that. And I think it makes for a very um interesting and, again, like the second, thought-provoking horror film. I wish there were more from this time like that. I mean, there are, but I wish there were more that took the lesson that Psycho 2 taught us, that not every horror movie needs to be blood and gore, and actually atmosphere helps a lot, and performances like Anthony Perkins. I wish we had more gay actors like Anthony Perkins who didn't feel the need to Here's the thing with Anthony Perkins and me. I'd never knew that Anthony Perkins was gay until a few years ago, when I found out that the way he had died was of AIDS. And he died in 92, 2 years after the fourth film in the series. I didn't know that because he just wanted to live his life. That's what happened. And now people nowadays seem to just want to make that their entire personality, but Perkins didn't do it, and people loved him more for it. If you make your sexuality your entire personality and you get hate for it, that's on you. If you're such a shallow person that the only thing you have to go off of is I'm gay, I'm a lesbian or whatever, yeah, you're shallow. Try actually making a personality. Like Anthony Perkins. He seems like such a nice guy here, and he's not at any point trying to make excuses for how he performs or anything because he's gay, because he doesn't need to. He's very talented. I wish we could get more talented actors in films rather than just, oh, they're an actor in this because they're gay. I really wish. And it really sucks that Anthony Perkins is dead because I really wish he could have been in more. Maybe I'll revisit some of his older stuff sometime. But, uh, sorry for the rant. It's just annoying. But yeah, I do think if you enjoyed Psycho 2, I would recommend watching the third. I will try to watch the fourth tonight. Um, but yeah, also with this release, I didn't watch Psycho 2 in this pack. I watched it on the Arrow Video Blu-ray. Psycho 3 here doesn't have closed captions or subtitles, which I will say is a bit annoying. So I'm guessing that's the same with Psycho 4. Um, but it still had good picture quality. It still looked good. But yeah, can't wait to watch the fourth and finish off the series. Maybe somewhere else down the line I'll watch the Bates Motel movie, but not really feeling up to it. But yeah, that was my review of Psycho 3. If you let me know in the comments down below. If you have any requests, let me know as well. And movie reviewer next door.